Hello everyone and welcome. Make a cup of your favorite drink and get comfortable because this is a wonderful time for news stories from YellowCat. Send your own stories in the comments below and maybe they'll be in our new video. Subscribe to the channel if you're not subscribed yet. Let's get started. Why did you quit your job right away? Part 4. I used to work for an IT company that set up switches, access points, and other networking equipment for clients. I had a contract to hire for 4 months and quickly learned how things work. I thought that. I was called into the office with my boss and the owner. The owner was mad at me because Zendesk said I only worked 6 hours that week. Aside from that, they were mad that I didn't have many tickets closed, but I couldn't do that until I did my research. I was supposed to close tickets quickly, though. It was hard to stay on the right side of that line, and I only closed 30 tickets a week on average, while our night guy closed 230 a week because he wasn't limited by the same rules I was. Anyway, I told him I'd be perfect for the next week, keeping track of time and all that. Even though Zendesk followed all the rules to the letter, they only reported 5 hours of work for the week the following week. He told me that Zendesk was broken because I was definitely working more than 5 hours a week. Then they said in a mean way, "You have one more chance to make me happy or leave." So I told them, "Fine, I'm done, here's my badge." When I went to a job fair 2 days later, I was hired and paid twice as much as I was before. I worked there for more than 2 years before I was fired. I'm now looking for work, but it was much better than that networking company. At the time, I was employed by an information technology company and I devised a strategy to boost sales in my region. This was due to the fact that the targets were extremely difficult to achieve and I needed to earn the commission. After a period of 6 months, I was promised a pay raise. However, this did not occur and my financial status became challenging. When I presented the plan to the directors, they told me that it was not possible to implement any of the ideas because there was no guarantee of a return on investment and they did not want to take any risks. When I presented the plan to a rival company, they responded by saying that is effing awesome during the interview. It's been 2 years since I started doing it and I'm currently doing twice as much as I was aiming for at my previous location. I should probably send an email to my previous boss to let him know that the plan was incorrect and that I should have calculated the outcome to be twice as high as I anticipated it to be. In the past, I worked for a startup. The following may be typical, but it is the only startup exercise I've had. It's also a little bit of a rant. There wasn't much IT at this one-man shop startup in California when I started working as an IT administrator. AD, DNS, DHCP, healthcare software, database storage, and a few other tasks were all managed by a single desktop server. Unmanaged switches, a consumer router, and wireless made up the network equipment. End-user equipment came from the store as one-off pieces. The monitors were the only thing that never changed. The following year went largely without incident. Things were taking a while to sort out, but they were starting to come together. The horrible all-in-one desktop server was transformed into a virtual infrastructure with service-specific virtual machines and a backup system installed. While we worked to eventually switch to Cisco equipment, the network was upgraded temporarily to use Juniper hardware, uniform equipment throughout the board. Began introducing additional services gradually, such as VPN, internal wiki, hotkeys for our customer support staff, etc. The IT department had to hire more staff because the business was expanding quickly and we were starting to expand to Texas. They offered me the opportunity to become an IT manager and employ staff. I eventually put together a team that included a lead desktop, a system administrator, a tier 1 desktop, and myself. We got along great, and fortunately, things kept getting better for everyone. As the business grew, it started appointing senior seasoned individuals as vice presidents to oversee various other divisions, including marketing, finance, engineering, etc. They eventually approached me to talk about hiring a vice president of IT. I was sad about it at first, but I quickly got over it because I thought I could continue with my career and learn a lot from this person. A few months later, I began to hear rumors from our Texas office that the IT department would also be taken over by the vice president of engineering. After a week, I get a message from our CEO on Slack saying he wants to talk to me. I ask him right away if the VP of engineering will be taking over IT. IT will roll up to engineering. To go back a bit, the vice president of engineering, who I'll refer to as Dumb A, was a jerk. He lacked any empathy, emotional intelligence, or even a sense of how to be a personable person. In the few months he had been there at that point, he had stepped on a lot of toes. For instance, the designers were clearly under the purview of the marketing department as they were responsible for design. Instead, the CEO was persuaded by the Dumb A to move the designers under engineering. The issue is that he took this action without consulting the VP of marketing. Dumb A would send emails with instructions on how to accomplish this or that, directing other departments on how to carry out their duties. Another instance is when he challenged our internal recruiter about how she ought to carry out her duties and ultimately took control of the engineering hiring and recruitment processes. Then he started to gripe about her not doing her job. This guy wanted to switch the external DNS provider that we use. He completed it on his own without consulting me or my system administrator. Our emails were ending up in other people's spam folders for a week. Once it was brought to our attention, my system admin quickly figured it out, but it took us much longer to collaborate with Dumb A to resolve the problem. Another time, Dumb A told the CEO that MDM was preventing him from accessing files on his phone, and they made me take it down for the entire company. Anyway, I was supposed to report to Dumb A, who is a D and makes bad decisions. My CEO tells me the news later that day, and the three of us have a sit-down. Dumb A continues by telling me about his conversations with acquaintances who are IT directors in similar positions regarding the proper management of an IT department. He mentions that one name that keeps coming up is Kinetics. Then he informs me that he has reached out to them and has asked them to conduct an extensive audit of the IT department, which includes interviewing myself and my employees. I asked him if he was considering doing this or if he had made up his mind. It's already decided upon. We go through the process of granting this company complete access to our servers and network over the course of the upcoming few months. They interview my group and me. We never received a copy of a report about anything, and Dumb A gave us no feedback at all during the time I was there. The only criticism I received regarding the entire process came from Kinetics itself, who briefly said that they never had to do anything similar, and that, although it was uncomfortable for the interviewer, the interviews went extremely well overall. We continued to expand into Texas during that period as well, due to dreadful build-out mismanagement. Dumb A was berating me for using wired connections for desktops and printers in the IT department and urged me to reduce my usage. Employees wouldn't have been able to complete their work if this had happened. It took a few weeks for those network drops to finally arrive. I'm not sure how I did it, but I completed it. Just a huge waste of time. We wanted me to leave it alone so they could move to the cloud, even though we had already paid twice as much for the equipment to keep it on premises. We moved into the cloud. He requested that I get rid of our internal wiki and ticketing systems because they were outdated technologies. I had no choice but to do it, of course. I finally gave notice on a Tuesday and left that Friday because I was so tired of it. That my entire team quit after me within a month did not surprise me in the slightest. Everyone in their exit interview complained about Dumb A. There are rumors that he was dishonorably let go by the company. When was your F this HOA moment? Part 4. Our husband owned a townhouse with 2 different HOAs that we had to pay into. Neither of them did much. They didn't do a good job of clearing the snow, and the grass and landscaping looked bad. There was one HOA that sent out a census every year and let everyone know when their meetings were, among other things. Some board members were stepping down, leaving a few spots open. They asked residents to fill the spots. Looks like not enough, or maybe any, people wanted to, and then we all got a mean letter telling us that just because we all have our own lives and business to run, that was no reason not to take part in the HOA business. We also paid our quarterly fees, but they didn't deposit the payment. Then they charged us late fees and sent our payment to collections. They tried to kick us out when I spoke out against it. From our townhouse, which my husband paid for in full 10 years ago. HOAs can get effed. I wish I didn't live in an HOA, but moving, especially right now, isn't an option. This head of the board, who has been head for a while now, doesn't even live there, like more than 5 years. Everyone knows that renters shouldn't be on the board at all, but he's there anyway. The pool. Oh my god, where do I even start? Let's see. When we moved in almost 20 years ago, there was a phone on the outside wall of the bathroom that looked like a normal landline phone. At least, that's what I was told. Kids should call their parents if they needed to. Nope, it was being used to make free calls to Mexico and South America. A year later, they took it down and put in a phone that only calls 911 in its place. When we first moved in, there was some kind of lift chair that made it easy and safe for disabled people to get into the water. Parents were letting their kids use it as a diving board, and it broke after just a few months. The pool had been broken into and vandalized for 10 years, so they hired security guards to watch it on the weekends and in the evenings. And it's hard for them to hire security guards. Another person who used to be in the Marines and liked to yell at everyone said that kids today are bad because parents don't spank them as much as they used to. My husband, son, and I went to the pool one night and saw the guy sitting in the baby pool in just his underwear and a white undershirt. He'd only been there for a week before being fired. A worker at the HOA pool thought that because he was there, he could bring his family without any problems. That worker was fired. This guy was called Postal by other people. He was really creepy. People liked to block him from getting into the pool so he could talk at them. He had a thick accent. He would stalk the cars in the parking lot, there are about 10 spots outside the pool, and stare in their windows in a very creepy way. No matter if they had their card to open the gate or not, he would let anyone walk by and into the pool. He offered my son a bottle of water, but I politely turned it down because who knows if it was tainted with something. He told my son not to drink the water from the fountain because it was dirty and nasty. He would leave the pool and stalk kids playing in the park next to it. Some dumb teenage girls were at the pool one night taking pictures of each other with their phones. Postal got angry and yelled at them, then filmed them with his phone, saying they were making fun of them by filming them. I don't know if they were or not. The last straw was when I told a board member at the HOA's Labor Day party that Postal had been following my car again, which made me feel very uncomfortable. Postal heard me and got angry. He then sat in his car and sulked for the rest of the party. The board member decided to scream at me, saying I was the reason he quit, that they, the board, was getting too many complaints about Postal, and I was behind it. I was not, though I did submit complaints about his creepy A behavior, and I was horribly embarrassed. That was the last we'd seen of Postal. My boyfriend came to my HOA neighborhood to see me. We drove away in my car to see a show. When we got back 4 hours later, his truck was gone. We knew right away that it had something to do with a terrible HOA overlord who was always scaring people. When I called, he told me that the truck was towed because it was parked in a spot meant for visitors, but it was there so often, every few days, there was no way he could be a visitor. I made it very clear that he was a visitor and begged the HOA to take the truck back. He told me I was lying to take the blame off of him. As the conversation went on, he asked about inappropriate and private matters in exchange for the chance of getting the truck back. It was rude of him to suggest that I get his permission every time my boyfriend came over so that the truck wouldn't get towed in the future. He asked how long my boyfriend and I had been together, how often we'd been seeing each other, why he needed to stay the night, and what he did for a living. I asked, where the H is he supposed to park if he's a visitor and gets towed for parking in the visitor's area? Tell me what we could have done to avoid being a victim of your scheme. The truck was brought back after we talked on the phone for more than an hour. I guess he had enough evidence to believe me. My friend owned the house, and all of a sudden, she started getting emails from the HOA telling her they were going to charge her $100 every day that she didn't live there. They said that since she had to travel for work about 80% of the time, she wasn't really living there, which was against their rules. The head of the HOA told her with pride that he had already made 3 other people sell their homes that year and that she would be the next one. He was wrong, though. She began to look into it. She read the HOA rules all the way through. He knew that his threats were not true. Got a lawyer. He told the HOA that he would sue them for harassment. It looks like that chairman was only brave when there were threats. When he smelled fried food, he was so scared that he quit the HOA board, sold his house, and moved out. So, F the HOA. If you want to watch the part 3, click the link here. We're very, very glad to see you all in the comments again. Many thanks for your support.